You want to go first, Dino?
Sure. I'm Dean Quacklar. Sorry for the long last name. I've been sewing for quite some time. I've actually used to do industrial sewing for large slings that would be used for trucking or paper companies and the such. About 4 years ago, I quit doing that and went into doing Gracie designs, where I'm doing more of the more intricate sewing. I absolutely love to sew. I don't know everything about it, and that's, I think, what makes it exciting, is that you always are on a constant learning, and to think of it that way is so important going forward in everything that you do, because it allows you to pivot. Kelly and I both know what it means to pivot. This past year, we do hats, we do shirts. I have screen printing right behind me. And we actually had to pivot to do face masks this past year. And I can say for myself, I sewed somewhere in the ballpark of about 5,000 masks this past year. So there was a lot of 18-hour days, a few 24-hour days. It was busy, but having that ability to have a desire to pivot, to learn, to take on new things that make us money, because that's what we want to do. You know, we want to be able to support the things we love to do. So that's what we are. That's what I am. So go for it, Cal.
Okay. Like the hat, I can see it now. So I have been kind of crafty for years. College used to sell polymer clay jewelry down in the Union for $5, and that's how I'd make my beer money in college. I don't know if y'all remember hair wraps, but I used to do those. I had some friends with some dreads, so we'd do some crazy hair wraps on them. I'd sit there all day down in the Union, tying up their hair wraps and selling little polymer clay jewelry on satin string. We called it rat tail back then. But that's kind of how we started. And then I always kind of dabbled with sewing, but it was always on my mom's machine. So for our first Christmas, Dean got me a sewing machine. It was a Kenmore. I think it was like $150. And I just started dabbling and started making headbands and card cases and just some real simple sewing. A lot of the patterns I kind of designed myself. Played with, tapering at the ears on the headbands, and then doing some with a hard insert and how to make them reversible. And most of the patterns we did, I designed myself. Or I would take one that was existing and kind of modify it how I like it. Because I'd be like, well, I want it a little bit bigger so I can fit a big stack of loyalty cards in there or whatever. And then about, I'd say 6 years ago, I was going in to buy like a pair of scissors or something at the place where we bought our sewing machine. So we both have industrial sewing machines. And I went in and I was like, what's that? And there was a secondhand embroidery machine on the floor, and it was a Brother or something. She's like, yeah, $300. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, $300. I was like, oh, I can start putting the state of Wisconsin on things. And that's what I wanted to do. So I was doing a lot of wristlet pouches. So I was like, I'm going to start slapping Wisconsin on stuff, see what happens. Well, shortly after that, we got picked up by Bonton and that Yonkers locally. So we got picked up by them to do pouches with the state of Wisconsin on them. Then we got picked up by Illinois, and then Missouri, Indiana, Buffalo, New York. We were in like 9 states, and we ended up eventually in 95 of their stores before they went bankrupt. And we started messing with hats, and we upgraded our machines once because I killed that machine. I mean, I killed it because I was way overusing it. It was not meant to do that. So then we bought some other, tabletop machines. Those worked fine. They did the job. We were still doing the wristlets, and we were kind of modifying the hoops that we had. So basically, we were taking a hoop and sticking, like, it almost looked like a clipboard into it, and then pressing the hat down so we could lay it flat on some sticky. It was a really big process. So those really started picking up. And then we were like, well, let's get a more industrial style machine that's meant to do hats. So if you see me, I actually have a hat hooped behind me on that's Tully back there. That's our first machine that we bought that was meant to do hats. We got that, and then a week later, we bought that because it made such a huge impact on our output that we bought 2 machines within a week of each other. One's a brother, one's a baby lock. They're both made in the same factory to the same specifications. They always say they're different, but I'm telling you right now, they're not different. And then eventually we graduated to our 10 needles, which are Francis and Robert back here. And they have 10 different thread colors, and they cut all the threads in between, and they do a lot of the work that we were doing by hand before. So that's kind of where the business grew. But like you said, Carrie, we used to sell at the farmer's market. I had big vintage suitcases full of headbands, and I'd sell 80 to 150 per market per week. So every Wednesday night we did the Green Bay Farmers Market, and then every other Saturday we went down to Appleton. So we literally were just, I mean, it was like headbands all summer. And we would sell, I mean, we had loyalty cards, buy 10, get 1 free. Because we'd rotate such new fabrics in at such a rapid rate that people would come each week and see something different. And they're like, oh gosh, I've been looking for a pink one. And it was just, people were ending up with, you know, collections of our headbands. So that was really, headbands really made a difference for us from a market standpoint, but really our big online boon with Etsy when we were working on there is somehow we ended up at the top of the search with passport covers. And it was just like a fabric wallet that you could slide your passport in, and it was just cute. It, you know, and it kind of hid it. It would just made it a little bit easier to carry your passport when you were, you know, traveling. And then we'd put a snap on some of them if people wanted them. Eventually we started making travel wallets. But we ended up on, if you know anything about web search, we ended up on the first page above the fold in Google search if you typed in passport cover. So that really boosted our business, and that's around the time that I quit my day job. And then 5 years ago, when we really hit it with Bon-Ton, is when Dean quit his day job and then came home to work the business. So we both do this full time. And now we have an Etsy site where we've sold almost 14,000 items, and that's just on the retail side. That doesn't include when we were working through Etsy wholesale, because Etsy used to have a wholesale platform that you could sell wholesale to boutiques and gift shops, and it just wasn't enough for them to have to maintain it, so they canceled it. And a new company came in called Fair. They were called Indigo Fair. It's Faire, and they are basically like a wholesale matchmaker. So boutiques and gift shops can shop on Fair for handmade items to stock in their shops. So after we found we were doing so well with Bon-Ton and then they shut down, we joined Fair to try to keep the business rolling. And it was really scary. It was so scary because we're like, you know, you quit your job and I'm doing this. And I mean, I ran restaurants for 20 years. That was my past life. So I was like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to support our family? We've got a daughter, we've got a dog, we got a house, we got 2 cars. Like, and what happened was all these little shops that were near the Yonkers and the Carson Pirie Scotts and the Boston stores started looking inside the hats and going, Gracie Designs, I love these hats. And now that Yonkers is closed, maybe I can carry them. So then they found us, and now we are in all 50 states, and we serve over 825 stores. So we stock these different shops at different rates, different prices. You know, and Jane, I saw your question about Bon-Ton, how we connected. Their buyer shopped me at the farmer's market on a Wednesday night. And she is now, because they shut down, she is doing some kind of manufacturer's rep stuff. So there's a few accounts that she's helped us find too. Her name's Sarah. She's great. And she's connected us with like, there's a company near the Dells called Rural Route 1 Popcorn. You may have seen them in like Quick Trip. They're the company that supplies the Boy Scouts with their popcorn when when they come around and sell their popcorn. So they support the Boy Scouts of America. So I think they do all of them. And it's out of Wisconsin, and they have a full gift shop, and they sell a ton of our hats. And I think they have some T-shirts too, if I remember correctly. So yeah, Bonton was great. And then she connected us with Belk, and we got some stuff in with Belk. Tanya, you might know Belk, right? If you're from the South?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, we had a Belk in Jackson.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they're now filing for bankruptcy.
Ah.
Yeah, we got a letter in the mail. So we're all paid up. So we're good. We did lose some money with Bonton when they shut down. We had some friends that lost $85,000 in unpaid invoices when Bonton shut down.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And if I can just interject, one thing about that, and I promised I wouldn't interject too much, but one thing about that is getting into Bonton was exciting for us. And when we heard about the bankruptcy, it was scary for us. So when you're talking about, how to get your craft going, how can you make it successful, taking these big risks is really scary because you don't know what might happen. And a lot of people lost money. We lost some money too on that. But the exciting thing about it is that you're getting your name out there. You're being noticed throughout the country for the type of things that you do, and that word of mouth spreads like wildfire. And so, we could look at that venture as we lost money, this is the end of our shop, or we could look at it as what an opportunity to start gaining new business. A lot of the limitations that are brought on by going with somebody like Bonton is that they have a certain area that you cannot sell within, say, 50 miles of their stores. So it closes out a lot of those businesses. When they went down, it opened up all those stores. And so for us, we went through that stage of, oh no, what are we going to do? And then it blew up. And I would say that for a long time and still today, we are busier now than we were with Bonton, which is kind of crazy because Bonton was such a big company. And it had so many stores. We were in, how many stores were we, Kel?
95.
95 stores with them. Now we're at over 700, 800?
825. Yeah.
825 now. So if you compare that, if we look back at that and say, wow, we lost this money to get to do business with Bonton, that's like a speck of dust comparatively now because the amount of business that we've gained through that opportunity. So it was a great investment of advertising. So continue on.
And the thing is, when you're dealing with a big company like that, there's special invoicing that you have to do and special tagging, and you've got to do UPCs, and you have to package everything a very specific way and label every box with exactly the PO number and exactly the destination. Because a lot of the time you're shipping to a big warehouse where they're going to then kind of send them out to the different shops on trucks, and they're going to, do all that expediting from there. Whereas when you're dealing with a little boutique in Hilton Head Island, it's probably the owner that's buying from you. And she's going to send you a message and go, hey, could I get this in, red instead of blue this week? Absolutely. Great. Your package will be there. And you send her a little note in the mail and she gets it. And you get a little note saying, oh my gosh, we love it. She takes the little picture and puts it in the review saying, we love these hats. They came really fast. Great, great supplier to deal with. And then that's it. There's sometimes they tag stuff, but it's not UPC. They just want a tag that they can write their price on or put a little sticker on. But they want your brand there because they want to show that they're supporting small businesses. So, there were some adjustments we made. Like we took our website off of the tags if you want to find us, it's really easy to just Google our name. So we figured, you know, taking our name off, our website off the tag would encourage people to still shop through our stores, because we want them to keep going back to them, because then they keep ordering from us. Because am I going to turn down a, you know, $450 wholesale order because I made somebody mad because I told one girl to come buy a $28 hat from me? I'm going to be like, oh, you're in this town? Go shop with our partner, this store there, and then she keeps ordering from us because we're supporting her business by pushing business her way. You know, so that's something that really we try to support our retailers as much as possible. So we really had to pivot. But as Carrie and I were talking about earlier, the really big difference between somebody who's working at a craft show or a farmer's market is you make a bunch of stuff and hope that it sells. Whereas if you're doing wholesale, you make your samples, you take pictures of them, or if you're able to do mock-up, like I can mock up a lot of things. So you mock everything up, put them up on the website, then they order, and then you make what they've ordered. Then you ship it, then you get paid, and you don't have all this extraneous inventory sitting around. So a lot of it, I mean, with fine art, it's different. You're going to probably have to deal with galleries. You may have to deal with some consignment. Definitely negotiate great consignment rates. You know, make sure that you really do your homework in that area and find out what kind of read
it.
Yeah, read it.
Read their agreements on that.
Please read consignment agreements. There was something that we got caught up in with somebody that was an argument, and she was like, well, I'm not going to carry your stuff. We talked through it. Now we're great friends. She carries our stuff. But she was telling me that if anything was stolen in her store, we weren't going to get paid for it. I was like, well, if my goods are in your shop, you are responsible to make sure it doesn't get stolen. So why am I going to take the hit if I have zero control over what's happening in your shop? So really make sure with consignment agreements or artist agreements that you're doing that you really read through that stuff, because you might miss something in there that might end up, you know, causing you to lose some money. You know, that's the big thing. And, you know, if you are going to build a website, I can't say this more than a million times, find a way to make it a .com. Making a .com versus a .net is worth changing the name of your business. Because when you think, if you're going to look for me online and the name of my business is Gracie Designs, what are you probably going to look for? GracieDesigns.com, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of such a natural thing. My sister's a graphic designer, and that's something that she really preaches. And she's up there. She's got like an art director job with this big company that's got like, they're in Sweden and San Francisco, and they're all over the place. So, you know, when I tell people, if you're looking to start a website, you know, like for a while I didn't have GracieDesigns.com, so we used shopGracieDesigns.com. And we kept that so people can still, because that's on some old business cards. But I always tell people, .com it. Make sure you use a .com if you're going to open a website. And even if like you're finding a place to host like pictures of the artwork that you're doing, and let's say you decide to start selling on Etsy, I tell people, go buy your website name, because it's like $15 a year, and direct that to your Etsy shop until you can build out your own website. Because that way you're starting to build some traffic to that site before you even start doing anything with it. It's starting to kind of click in Google search, and people are starting to find you that way. In the time that we decided to build out our own website is when I looked at my analytics on Etsy and found that one of the top search terms to get to our shop was Gracie Designs. So once people started using the name of our business to find us on Etsy, I was like, ooh, dude, I don't want people to, you know, Tanya, somebody sees you and go, oh yeah, I got this hat on Etsy. Or do I want people to go, no, I got this hat on Gracie Designs, right?
Yeah.
Right? So we want people to say that you got it from me, not from Etsy. And that's where that split starts to happen. Now, we still sell on Etsy because it's just, there's so much natural traffic built into Etsy that we're not at the point where we're leaving them. But eventually we'd like to get off of Etsy. You know, their fees have gone up. Their support has gone down. they're letting a lot more non-handmade artists, or not artists, but sellers onto the platform.
You know, getting off of Etsy, I think what I see is you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, and opening up another basket is very helpful. We have our eggs in many baskets so that we can make sure that we can continue to bring in sales, because that's what allows us to continue doing what we love to do. So it's, you know, I kind of see it as, do I want to get away from Etsy? I don't want Etsy to be our main way of bringing in customers. I would rather have it Gracie Designs. Would we still use Etsy? Possibly, but it wouldn't be our primary focus. But we have to build up to get to that point. So,
Kelly, do you use Shopify on your website?
I'm sorry?
Do you use Shopify on your website?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell them a little bit about Shopify?
So I like Shopify because you can really, you can customize it to look the way you want it to look. They've got a lot of great free kind of templates. Their support is phenomenal. The pricing is reasonable. And there's a lot of other platforms that integrate with Shopify. So like Fair will take my entire Shopify file and put that into Fair for handmade, which is amazing, right? So then I don't have to always make all of my changes in 3 different places. They just automatically import. So when you're thinking about what you want to, like Squarespace is fine, but it just isn't built out for e-commerce as well. I mean, like, I think of somebody that uses Squarespace as like Armchair Expert, right? They use it for their main page and they sell some t-shirts and some hats or whatever, some swag. That's fine. But if you've got 700 items on your website like we do, because we sell every design for all 50 states, well, I want something that's got a lot more capabilities and kind of deeper, you know, allowances for variations. And, you know, I saw, one of you had mentioned when you look for original art, it's a lot of prints. Which one of you mentioned that? That was you. So, you know, you could say original print, greeting card, you know what I mean? You could even go t-shirt if you decide to do like print on demand or something like that. If you have a, you know, print friendly image, you know, and they can see like where they can decide which tier of that within one listing, and you can price it all out individually, and you can put all the individual shipping charges, and everything can kind of work together so that it looks the way you want it to. Because like the big thing that I do when I'm building out my website is I go, okay, so what do I kind of want this to look like? And I look at websites that I really love, that I like to shop, that have the look that I'm looking for and the functionality that I'm looking for, and that's where I go. Because my sister's specialty is basically web design testing. So it's called Users Testing is the name of the company. Big companies hire them to come in and they'll look at your website and go, move this over here, because that's where people naturally go. And move this here, because this, so they literally test websites and give feedback back to companies to let them know how to make their websites more user-friendly. And it's a huge company. And she's on one of their top design teams. She runs the team. She builds out a lot of apps. She builds out a lot of, you know, functionality. So when I'm not sure what to use, I talk to her. And when I told her I was thinking about Shopify, she's like, yeah, it's the only way I'd go. And she's very familiar with Shopify because she understands e-commerce. So that right there was a feather in their cap for us also, is that she took a look at it and said, yeah, if you are not a web designer, they use something called WYSIWYG. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but basically it's short for, or I forget the word that you use, but what you see is what you get, right? So if you don't know HTML code to make something look pretty, you can go ahead and click one tab or the other, HTML, or basically it's a WYSIWYG, where you can make it look, and then you can highlight it and bold it and underline it and center it. And you can do that like you would be comfortable with in like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever. Basically what that does is it allows you to format your website that way. and instead of having to write all the HTML code, and the WYSIWYG just flips it into code so that it works functionally on your website for you. So those are some like weird things that you don't think about when you're deciding who to go with for a website, but they also have the ability to put beautiful images in, and they've got a way to easily do a slideshow. So in the case that you are an artist and you want, your work maybe displayed in someone's home, a picture of that to kind of scroll across the front of the page when they go to, yourbusiness.com, and just be able to look at these scrolling images and click in and go, oh my gosh, I love that photo or that item. It's beautiful. It's original artwork that's already sold, but look, I can get the print. Or, oh, my mom would love that as a card for her birthday, or however you decide to sell your artwork. Hope that makes sense. That's a lot of information.
That was great. I'm actually looking through, you had me looking through my list of questions to see like what you've already touched on, and you've touched on a lot of it already. Hey, what's your favorite part of what you do? That's what I want to know. What's the part you love and what's the part you like farm out?
So we have really like kind of two helpers. One's a student who does a lot of like, there's certain information that FAIR does not give us on our retailers if we did not bring them to the site. So what she's doing is she is, going on, because if you go online to people's like business Facebook pages, you can find their email address, you can find their website, you can find their like a lot of information that we don't have on them. She's kind of filling that in for us so that we have all the contact information should something happen with FAIR. So I'm big on insurance policies, to know that I can still get in touch with if they were to shut down tomorrow, I have a growing list of all of our accounts that I could reach out to individually should something happen to that website. Because I have had that happen. I have had things close on me, and I don't want to lose the contact because I was prepared when Etsy wholesale shut down. I sent a big email to all of my accounts, and they all continued ordering from me individually until FAIR got set up, and I moved over to them, and they all moved to FAIR with me. And I have stores that have been ordering from us for 10 years. There's one of my favorite shop names down in Austin, Texas, called Giddy Up Pickle. She places a huge order every year, and she's this super like cowgirl vintage shop, and they do a ton of the distressed truckers. They sell a ton of them. Texas loves Texas, right? That's the one thing Texas loves more than anything else is Texas. Right now, I don't think they love Texas so much. Not with this weather, right? But so she does a lot of that hunting and pecking for us. We don't have to do that. And then after we embroider like the fabric hats, we have somebody who distresses them. She does some tagging for us. She cards some of our patches so that they're packaged like we send them out in little packages like this for retail, and then they've got instructions on how to apply the patch on the back. So like she puts a sticky note in there and then bags them for, like, she does a lot of that kind of stuff for us. And she lives across the street. She's a paraprofessional at Heritage here in De Pere. And at night, when she has time, she works for us. Otherwise, we do everything, which is insane. My favorite thing to do is to design and to sell. I like to sell. I like to design. But I spend a lot of my day running machines, which is fine for now. But I think that once we kind of get back through some of this pandemic stuff, we're going to have to bring some more people in because it's really hard for one person to run 4 machines. And Dean knows how to run the machine, so he'll come out and help too. But that's if he's not screen printing or he's not labeling. He also approves all the orders, enters them all in, sets up, whatever, all of our inventory, and then I place, product orders. And, with all of because we've got special accounts with all of our vendors, because I'm really big on, negotiating pricing and negotiating memberships. And that's the other thing. Everything's negotiable. Everything is negotiable. So just because it says this is how much we charge a month, send a message to somebody and talk to them. I had somebody who used to charge $15 a month for one of the services that we purchased to help us run our website more smoothly, and they jacked their prices up to $60 a month. And I sent them an email going, I'm really sad. It's unfortunate that you've done this because we were planning on signing on with you. They're like, oh, we'll grandfather you into the old rate. And it was like that. It was a matter of like 3 seconds. I was like, oh, okay. Yes, please. So remember that sending that email, and they might say no, but I know that a lot of artists are very, it's just easier just to pay what they're asking. Everything's negotiable.
Yeah, so you're one of the questions again, I keep on going back to this is, how can we get our business up and running so that we can do it full time? And what Kelly just said is really huge, is that, if you're negotiating something, the worst thing that can happen is that they say no. The worst thing that can happen for you is not to even ask. And that's really big. That goes into everything that you do. And I hope you can hear me all right. I had to change my headset. But that goes into everything you do, whether it's consignment through a store, if you're doing wholesale, if you're getting an account for something that's going to help you, always negotiate or at least try. The worst thing you could do for yourself is just not try. And it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel like, oh, I hate negotiating, which I personally do. But the worst thing I could do for myself is just not even try. So can't reiterate that enough. Yeah.
But I think for me, I love to design, and I always joke around. For a long time, my restaurant jobs were always kind of my backup plan. If I need to, I can always go back to waitressing or bartending or, running restaurants. But now I have ideas in the back of my brain that I know that I could do if I needed to. So that's my job security at this point. But we've been able, we've got such a wide breadth of things that we can do within our craft. We can sew, we can embroider, we can screen print. If I needed to, I could go straight promotional and start doing people's logos on stuff. I don't love that idea. I don't love having to convert badly designed logos into an embroidery file, because everything has to be converted to stitches, and not everybody's logo is designed that way. And sometimes they're wonderfully designed logos. They're just not meant for what we need to do with them to make them work. So that's not what I'm interested in doing, but I know that if I needed to feed my family, I could do that. And that's part of it too. Sometimes you may want to only sell original artwork, but the greeting card industry, people love handmade greeting cards, and you may find that that's going to pay the grocery bill. So if I need to, use my original prints on cards to pay the groceries, and then have the unicorn be the fine art on the wall, that people are going to buy several times a year versus daily card selling. Or maybe it's not cards, maybe it's mugs. Maybe people love art. Who does? You can never have enough mugs, right? And there's so many companies now that will do print on demand, but that's another thing. Really shop, because some of them are overpriced, poor quality. Dean is the king of reading reviews. Every time I'm like, I think I want to do this, but I don't want to think about it, he's like, oh, I'll just read all the reviews. And he will review them, and he will watch the YouTube videos, and he will read every single review on stuff before we decide who we're going to go with. And then we end up making a really good choice because of it. Just don't tell him I said that.
I remember back when you guys were getting into the trucker hats, and I think you had been using one wholesaler and you were making a switch or something, and that's important. That can make or break your business if you know.
Oh, and now it's interesting because TikTok is insane. But wholesalers are selling out so fast that I actually have primary, secondary, third, fourth for one hat style. So I can go up to, on some of our hats, I can go up to 5 or 6 different people, but the price goes up. And so does the turnaround time. And so does the quality. I mean, the quality doesn't change, because a lot of times they're just wholesalers for one manufacturer. It just depends on who's keeping them in stock. So the cheapest ones usually go first, because if I can get a hat for, $5 and the next guy is $5.10 and the next guy is $5.25 and then the next guy is $7, I'm going to avoid going to Mr. $7. But if I have to go there, I have to make sure that I'm priced to be able to handle that once in a while. So sometimes you're going to have to take a little bit of a hit on your profit margin just to be able to make sure you're keeping your customers happy. But if you find that you always are paying $7 all of a sudden, then it's time to relook at your pricing. You want to look at your pricing structure and make sure that you're, because supplies change. Like I know with jewelry, silver pricing changes. I'm sure that, with paint, I'm sure paint prices change depending on supply and demand. If something really takes off, I have one of those circular knitting machines, and all of a sudden they went from $180 to $350. We bought it when it was still $180. Now they're $350, and you got to wait till May to get one. But I'm an early adapter. Like if I feel good about something, we do it. And Dean even said, he's like, don't get the $70 one, get the $200 one. It's just going to be a better machine. It's made in Germany. It's not, and people are finding that with the $70 ones, they were junk. So that's another thing. Like sometimes spend a little bit more on materials. I'm sure with paint especially, and with, canvases, like all of that stuff, I'm sure it makes a huge difference.
And of course, you can only afford what you can afford. But over the years, and when we used to do the markets outside, I remember we're like, oh no, we can get this tent. And I think we were in Green Bay, and I left, or I got a phone call later on. I was at home with Maggie, and you called in tears saying our a gust of wind came and folded our tent in half.
It actually twisted down to the
whole thing. And after that, I said, all right, I'm enough of buying the really cheap stuff over and over and over again. Let's invest in something really good. And that's what we did. We still have that tent. It's currently up in the attic because it's freezing cold outside, and I don't want to set up a tent in this weather. But we still use it every year, and it's still like new. It's great. So it's really a matter of, when you're going into supplies and what you're getting, making sure that you're getting the best quality that you can, of course, within your budget. And it might be hard to swallow at times, but years down the line, you're going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I got this one. Look at the machines behind Kelly. We spent some money there, but it's been to our benefit because that's what our business is. That's what we do.
I mean, the fact that they're not running right now is like, because usually I'm running like this machine right here, I'm running patches right now. I don't know if you can see them, but we're running some patches for a store in Oregon. So what I can do at night is I can set up this machine to run these patches while we're sleeping at night. So I can set this one up and then the one behind me and all four of them to flat patch run. And I can, run them all for stores all over. And, I have it designed so that I can switch those designs over easily. And the thing right now, that's the trend, is people love local because they're spending so much time at home. So there's that hometown pride. If you are going to do art shows and if you're going to do, events where you're setting up, I always tell people, go to Pinterest and just look at art displays and look at the ones that really make you turn your eye to the product and make you look at the product. Because too much outside of your artwork, it gets too busy and overwhelming for customers. And I have a very good friend who opens new stores for Anthropologie, and he is like a display king. Like, oh my gosh, Patrick is, he has this charmed life. He moved to Italy, married his husband there. They had an Italian greyhound dog and like this beautifully amazing house. I'm like, Patrick, dude, I need some help with my design. And I sent him pictures and he's like, okay, soft on hard, hard on soft. I'm like, what? He's like, soft goods go on hard surfaces. Hard goods go on soft surfaces. I'm like, okay, give the eye a break. You know, and he gave me all these like, and this is merchandising 101, stuff that I wouldn't know. But he's like, make it look like somewhere you would walk into. So if you are, you know, if you guys are going to do a show, really think about what would make you go into that booth and want to buy the artwork. Because the artwork, and a lot of times, is enough. So all white walls, white tent, clean looking, and then people walk in and they see this beautiful artwork, might be enough to make people stop and look, you know, and really get into it. And I don't love display, but I also love display. Like, it stresses me out because I want it to be perfect every time.
And when they do start opening up markets to start to go to a craft show, walk around, see what other people are doing. Kelly and I would walk around, we would take turns walking around the craft show, and we'd come back and we would say, okay, did you see the person at the end of this row and the way they set up their booth? That looks so cool. Maybe there's a way that we could incorporate that into our booth. We don't want it to look identical to them, but we're getting those ideas of what we could do that gives us a feeling like we're walking into a store, not walking into a tent, that we're walking into a place that we would want to be, and then focus in on that. Try to come up with different ideas. Go to craft stores and see what kind of boxes they have. We did, Carrie mentioned that you would go to our shows and see suitcases filled with our headbands. And what we found is that it kind of gives it that kind of eclectic style or that retro style of a suitcase, because they were old suitcases. But at the end, it was a dual purpose. At the end of our shows, we closed that suitcase and it went into our car. Done. We don't have to worry about organizing it too much. So we were constantly thinking. Yeah. What?
I've seen people do that with prints, where they set their prints up in a vintage suitcase. Just make sure they're the ones that open at a 90-degree angle and stop. Because some open flat, and those are really hard to deal with. But if you have the ones that open at a 90-degree angle and stop, and you just stack prints out, they look so cool. And what we used underneath them was tray stands in restaurants, tray jacks. Yeah. They were throwing a bunch away at Kavarna. So Alex and Linda, when they still owned it, told us we could take them. So we took some old tray jacks and we spray painted them, and that's what we set our vintage suitcases on, just to keep them kind of closer to eye level for people, and they loved it. And we could move them so easily, and then you just closed them up like scissors at the end of the show and threw them in the back of the truck. It was so easy.
And if you're ever looking for old suitcases, you know, just keep us in mind.
We've got some. They might be painted hot pink.
That's how we, you know, talking about shows that really kind of got us to where we are now. When we originally came from Milwaukee area, we did some shows down there. We moved up here, and it exploded. Like the numbers that we did up here, Milwaukee couldn't even touch, because we were showing a new product that people weren't familiar with up here, that more people were familiar with down in Milwaukee. So when we moved up here, that kind of got us to that next step. From there, we started, I think we had a few consignments. Isn't that right, Kel?
Yeah.
A few consignments, not a lot. But one thing led to another. We started getting into stores. We took everything in steps until we got to a point of where we could do all wholesale or majority wholesale. Bonton was a big part of that, and being able to do majority wholesale, which allowed me to start working full time as well, because we had such a high demand of these little zipper pouches. We did bags, we did headbands, we brought in embroidery, and then it exploded again. We were doing all this embroidery stuff. When Bonton left, it brought on the new step of hitting a lot of boutiques, and that was the next step, and a tremendous amount. everything kind of goes in a progression to get to where you ultimately want to be. And it's just a matter of being able to adapt to get to that point. If an opportunity comes up, you know, one of my, and I'm sorry to talk so much, but one of my big concerns and one of our concerns was if I put our products out there, somebody has the ability to copy those products. If I put our products out on Etsy, somebody could see our products and copy us. And guess what? We're doing great in our business, and people copy us. But people also know Gracie Designs, and they say, oh, I got a hat from Gracie Designs. I love it. I still have it. It's my favorite hat. It fits right, and that's because we take a lot of care into the products that we sell. I am a hat person. I wear a hat almost every day, and I like my hats to fit a certain way. It has to be a good quality, and that's the kind of product that I want to pass along to our customers. So we do a lot of research into what's going to make the best product. If we have a bad customer experience, what's the best way that we can take the opportunity to have a bad experience and make it into something phenomenal where that customer is like, I'm going back to Gracie Designs. There's a lot of other people that make that same design, but Gracie Designs took care of me when I had my worst experience. And we took that opportunity to step up the game. It doesn't work with everybody. Some people are like, no, I had a bad experience. I'm over with it. Those are the 5% of people. Don't treat everybody like that 5%. You treat everybody like they are our best customer. And that builds up your notoriety of your business to be such a great business. People want to work with you. So anyway, I'll back to you, Kel. Sorry.
I'm good. I wanted to see if there were any questions from any of you guys on any of the stuff that any of the tools that we use or anything like that.
Kelly, it's almost like you read my mind. I was like, okay, I'm done with my list. You touched on everything. Now let's open it up for questions.
Yeah.
What was the website platform that you use?
Shopify, Shopify. Yep. And
I just wanted to be sure I heard that correctly. That's all.
Yeah, I really like them. I mean, Squarespace is okay, but they're just not going to have the same functionality that Shopify has. And Shopify really specializes in e-commerce and selling handmade. They do a lot of drop shipping stuff too, but. And obviously there's Etsy, you know, Etsy's got a name for themselves too. But, you know, one thing I tell people when creating your shop on Etsy, the best thing to do is when thinking about search terms that you want to use or how you want to name your product, is that you want to think about the words that your customers would use to look for the things that you make. Because like as a painter, there's probably a bunch of terms that you use that I would never use, but I might be like, I really want a cool red painting for my living room because it matches the decor. So I'm going to Google red painting. And you would never describe your artwork as a red painting, but your painting might have some red in the artwork. So I would then find your stuff because I'm looking for a red painting. So it's really interesting to kind of, and you can even use Google AdWords to test keywords and find out how often they're used. But, you know, think about the things that people would type into Google to look for the things that you make to get them to you. You know, I mean, almost every hat we have is like Wisconsin hat, Alabama hat, Alaska hat, because that's what people type. Alaska hat, Alaska trucker hat, Alaska vintage trucker hat, because they want that vintage look, even though it's not a vintage hat, it's got that vintage distressed look. So those are some things to consider too to help you get found. You know, when you're trying to get people to find the things that you're making. But I think Shopify is good. I think Etsy is good. And also, like, look at the things in your category and look at how they present it on Etsy, and look for the ones that really stand out. Kind of like we were talking about with the art booths. You know, if you see a picture and they have it kind of staged, you know, a painting staged over a couch, right? And it looks really nice and centered and beautiful, and it's kind of stepped back, but it shows it in its, you know, natural environment, or a, you know, a drawing or whatever, a piece of artwork on the wall. And you're like, oh, that's the one that I want to click on because I like the way that that looks. That's a really good piece of advice to take to yourself and go, I want to be the one that stands out, because your eye is just as good as anyone else. And I think that one thing to remember as an artist is that there's a lot of people in our lives that we love very much who are not our customers. So when you're looking for advice on your product, don't ask your sister who thinks what you're doing is ridiculous. Ask people who've had great experiences purchasing from you. We don't ask our friends always, we ask our customers about their opinion on things. And we're really fortunate in that we sell kind of an item that, I mean, most people are baseball caps, right? So it's an easy thing to ask opinions about, but the people we really listen to is, you know, I'll post it on my Facebook page and go, hey guys, what do you think of this new hat? I'll go through and I'll look at it like, she's bought from us, she's bought from us, he's bought from us, he's bought from us, she's bought from us. Those are the comments I really listen to. Not the one who tells me what she thinks of my stuff every time I post it, but has never spent a dime on anything that we make. Do you know? So ask the people who are willing to give you the money for the things that you're making, what they think of the things that you're making, because they're the ones that you want to appeal to, and people like them. So if they have given you money and they are referring people to you, that's how that word of mouth really works, is listening to what they think of what you make. And sometimes the thing that you love the most is not the thing that your customers love the most. So then you got to take it back, and, you know, maybe there's going to be some artistic sacrifice involved. But that's where you really learn how to balance what you love to do with what is going to make you money at the same time, if that makes sense.
I think that was a really beautiful note to end on, unless anybody else has any other questions.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to comment that I just love your mindset. I think that is so important when you're putting yourself out there, you're developing a product, and, you know, you were talking about the really love that your customer might not love, and, you know, being able to mentally get over that and move on. You can't be married to everything. And I just think anybody who's producing, there's an emotional investment in that. And that, you know, both of you you speak with a growth mindset. And, you know, just hearing you talk about pivoting and, you know, always being ready for that, and just, you know, making the tough decisions sometimes when, you know, you need to spend the $250, but you really only have the $70, but knowing that it's going to pay off in the long run. I mean, those sorts of things are sometimes the tough decisions to make when you're in business, because there's risk involved, right? I mean, but it's just a great presentation. I just so appreciate hearing about your process and how you've evolved. And sharing it with us, because there's a lessons in what you talked about and how you're running your business. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, thank you both very, very, very much. It was really nice to catch up and hear how you're doing and hear more about your story. I love art-based business. I think it's really great.
Oh yeah.
Fun
if you
to talk
need
about.
anything else, let us know. You know, if you decide to do another thing and you have a specific topic that you want to speak to or whatever. Sure. And once you guys get rolling, if you want me to come and play around in the studio and check out that embroidery machine and see if it works, I can come and take a look at it.
Yeah.
Can I do that for you?
I am totally in on that. I'm very curious about that embroidery machine.
Cool. We'll dig it out and look at it.
Aaron wants to know too, right? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. I probably even have some, so we use really large spools. You can see them behind me, but we've got like just a whole bin of small spool embroidery thread that we could probably bring in and play with and kind of mess around a little bit.
That sounds so fun. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, good. Well, good to see you guys.
Yep. Have a good
Meet the rest
night.
of you.
Thanks,
Good luck.
everybody.
Thank you.